Welcome back to the VINwiki appraisal panel, where alongside John Tamarian from Curated and John Ficara from Ficara Classic, we appraise the car collections of YouTubers and prominent automotive influencers. Today we're going to talk about Tavarish's cars. A good friend, a Car Trek alum, Freddie Hernandez down near Orlando has an amazing collection of cars in every possible variety and condition. But this is all made possible by ModFind, so please visit them at the link in the description below, use their brand new app or their website to shop for or sell the next modification for your car or your build or whatever it is. Don't call it a rebuild. If you're the warranty like Tavarish, it's a great place to go shopping. New, used, OEM, aftermarket, whatever it is that you're looking to buy or sell, even cars and memorabilia, you can sell it or buy it on ModFind. You can even offer your followers a kickback to help you sell whatever you've got. So check them out now at the link in the description below. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me again.
Thank you, Ed. It's an honor to be here.
Once again, a joy to be with you, two fine gentlemen.
Thank you both. Well, this is an exciting collection of cars to go through, and the first one we're going to start with is his Gallardo Spider. That was really the build that just skyrocketed the growth of his channel. It's a 2008, it's a true manual car. It was in a bit of a fire. It is turbocharged. It runs pretty well most of the time. He's looking at different usability improvements. The top does not work, but overall, it's a very capable car, and it's a very well documented car on his channel. I sold my rebuilt title Car Trek Gallardo Spider for 110 grand. I think that's exactly what his is worth today.
You know, I'm going to say a little bit more. I think, the fact that it's manual, the miles aren't too bad. The rebuilt title's scary, but I'm going to say $120,000.
I always enjoy, Ed, when you say a little bit of a fire. Like every time something comes up that's bad about a car, it's a little thing. But this car is actually really pretty cool. I think he's done a great job on it. I'm going to land right between the middle of you guys at $115,000.
That's always a safe place to be. Next up is his $1 million show car, as he calls it, his 2003 Lamborghini Murcielago that was screen used as the hero car in Fast 8. It's completely restored. It's currently at the Peterson Automotive Museum. The interior is gorgeous. He did it very, very appropriately, kept it consistent with what they were trying to depict in the movie. It was by far, well, not even close to the best Fast and Furious movie, which is a low bar anyway. I think the car today realistically sells for about 450 grand, but there's a lot of really high market indicators in the Mercy world, obviously, so it could be even more than that.
Mercy manuals are hotter than ever. There's been transactions from 400, 500, 600, even $1 million. This car, it's lived a rough life. The fact that he's restored it, it's a beautiful car. I think he's doing the right thing having it at the Peterson. He had it at Amelia Island Concours. I'm going to go a touch lower than you just because of the history a little bit. But I think, $350,000 today, but I think realistically his hope of $1 million is probably not too far off.
I know film cars really well, and there's a certain power around them. We've seen McQueen cars, and I know people that are going to go crazy if I compare McQueen to Fast and the Furious, but that kind of fame is going to be what this car is like in the future when people have forgotten who Steve McQueen is. Fast and the Furious and family is going to be really important. And I think that's important today. I think he's done it right. I think he's shown this car correctly. I think really somebody would spend $500,000 on this now, but I would hold on to this car for another 10 or 15 years when the kids who are watching these movies have all the money and can drop it on this particular car.
There you go. And if he ever does decide to sell it, he now has a spare. So of the 3 cars that were used in the film, 2 of them have really survived. One of them, though, has been converted to a Jaguar V6 powertrain, and it was used for the Fast and Furious live show in the UK. Freddie just bought that with the help of our mutual friend Sam Hard. I had already sold him the engine and transmission out of that car, which I got from Sam Hart along with the Lycan. And so he's going to be like 65 or so grand, maybe 80 with the engine and everything else into that thing. And honestly, having seen the way that the engine and trans were removed from it, I would not try to put it all back together, but selling it all for somebody to display in their collection or a museum, it effectively being complete, I think you could sell the package of stuff as it is today for 200 grand.
Wow, I'm way off here. So just knowing what it takes to get a Murcielago running again, I've seen old race cars that were hacked up, and they take a lot of work. You know, when a car is, you know, someone's changed the engine and, you know, ignition system or whatever. But I think the way it sits, because it sounds like a big project, 100,000.
I've built stunt cars before, so I know how much we hack into these things and try to do stuff, and they're horror shows. I haven't seen this particular car, but I can only imagine they really cut into it, especially if they put such a miserable engine into it. I'm going to be with John on this at 100 grand, and that's just with maybe the potential of it being brought back to being a real car someday. But man, what a hot mess hero and stunt cars are like that. Dreadful.
Dreadful indeed. The next one is not dreadful, although it did start out that way. Crashed on all corners, his 675 LT. It now has an OEM MSO roof scoop. He painted it Tempest Blue, named after our sponsor Auto Tempest. Really, really cool looking car. Bigger turbos, an F1 homage interior. He says it's capable of 750 wheel horsepower. Freddie's dyno estimates are never accurate, but regardless, it is gorgeous. I think even though it's got a rebuilt title, I think it's 240 grand. I think if it were a perfect car spec the way it is today, it's probably 350, maybe more.
I have to disagree a touch, Ed. I just think because of the history, I'm going to put it at 150,000. That being said, I think the 675 LT is such a cool car, very limited, and a ton of major collectors love those cars. It's sort of like a cross between a modern classic analog, but still, you know, very much a new car.
I think these McLarens are great stock, and I think modifying them takes a little bit away from it. I've seen their work on these cars. They do a pretty good job. I mean, you look at Jared and everything that they do, I'd be confident in the car. I don't know if I'd be 250 confident. I'm more $200,000 confident.
Next is his 1995 Toyota Supra. He used this for CarTrek 6, which was supposed to be a $30,000 three-car dream garage, claiming that he'd paid 22 grand for it, which I know that he did, but that's been a very, very long time ago. And then he spent an insane amount of money modifying it and everything else. I think today it's worth 80 grand. It wouldn't be where my 80 grand would go, but that's what I think it is.
So I don't know this market too much. I think they have a big future. I think he could sell it a lot more based on his celebrity, but I think to me it's worth 60,000.
Supras are in a really weird place and very unique because the Japanese car market's very different than the rest of them, where modifications and upgrades actually bring value depending on how they're done. So a really stock Supra is worth a certain amount, and a really modified one might be worth an equivalent amount. But I think with the mods on this car, you know, you get a guy who's really excited at auction, I think you could get 90,000 for it.
He has another Supra, a 93, but it's a right-hand drive car. You're always going to get a little bit less for that. I can't ever keep track of which one's more modified. I think he might be switching the powertrains or something like that. So I backed that one down a little bit and said 60.
I actually put more because it's lower mileage, and I think it's sort of cool to have a right-hand drive car in the U.S. I put it at 80,000.
I know the last Supra was modified and everything. I'm going to actually put this one, because of the right-hand drive, super cool in the US, really desirable if you show up at a car show sitting on the wrong side. So again, I think you could get $90,000 for this for the right person.
In a CarTrek series that we recently finished filming, he brought an RX-7 wrapped in anime graphics. It is disgusting, it is awful, I hated watching it, but it did pretty well in most of the driving contests. And so I'm gonna call it 10 grand, and I would hope to never have to pay that for it.
I'm gonna put it at 12,000.
I've been into anime since Speed Racer, but this car was gross. But I think there's a lot of people who indulge in the gross out there. So I'm gonna put this at $15,000 for those people.
I know this was one of his childhood dream cars. He has a 99 Mitsubishi 3000 GT. It's red, 120,000 miles. Some great modifications, very appropriate. He's taken it on rallies. I think it's probably 35 grand today.
I'll agree. Probably my gut is around 30.
I'm with you guys. I always like these cars, although they're a little heavy, but they're cool cars. And I'm going to put it at 35,000.
Now, the current project that he has underway is his 2008 Ferrari 430 Scuderia. I love the Scud. I've put 15 or 16,000 miles on mine. I think it's probably going to be the next car to go just because I've had so many fun adventures in it already. His is a black car. It's being totally rebuilt. He's going to paint it white. And this one's the one that's a little hard to value, but I'm going to treat it as what I think it would sell for once he's done. Obviously, it's going to have a rebuilt title. It was a pretty real accident. I'm going to call it 1.25, but I think, it could go for even more. Who the heck knows?
If you look at the market, 430 Scuderias, 360 Challenge Stradales, these sort of racer purpose-built special edition V8 Ferrari cars are just doing so well. With the introduction of the smaller engines on the 296 GTS, I think these V8 cars are going to continue to do well. Even though the history is a little rough, I'm going to put it at 160,000.
Wow. I mean, you know these cars really well, better than I do. I think they're great cars. Every person I know that has one loves them. But I wouldn't think he's finished with it. I think that's going to be about $135.
For reasons that continue to be unclear, Freddie bought Tyler Hoover's carcass of a 355. 355 manual transmission Spider that burnt to the ground while Vehicle Virgins was driving it. I think it's only worth something as a decoration, but it's a pretty cool decoration at that, so I called it $2,500.
I'm going to say the VIN number is worth something. For whatever reason, I'm going to put it at 5,000.
I'm going to say $500 so that I can buy it, cage it, put a Fiero engine in the back, and drive it in the 24 hours of lemons.
It is a long way from rolling anywhere, but that would be entertaining to watch. Next up is one of my old cars from Car Trek 2, a 2003 Aston Martin Vanquish. The car spent a good deal of its life in Colombia, but the drug dogs did not find anything illicit in it. It ran terribly in the heat of Las Vegas for Car Trek 2, and as I was exhausted and tired of driving it, I agreed to sell it to him for $37,500. He's been excited to do it. He keeps saying he's going to manual swap it, stuff like that, but everything has gone up in the 2 years since then, so today I'm going to call it $55,000.
I think this is one of the prettiest cars ever made. When I first saw this design, I was blown away. They've started to go up in value. I'm going to put this at the last car that sold on BAT with similar miles, so I'm going to say $67,000.
Now, I got to appraise and drive in this car for Car Trek, and every light was on the dash, and the flappy paddle shifter is horrible. Yeah, the transmissions are dreadful. But, it's the most beautiful car Ford ever made, and it could be tremendously valuable someday, not today. I think I was at it like about $45,000 then. I think it's probably worth, after he's been working on it, about $60,000 now. And I think if he swapped that transmission, it might even be worth about $70,000.
Well, I hate to think that he's doubled his money on me, but I suppose that does happen these days. I think, other than his Mercedes, my favorite car that he owns is his Casino Royale spec 2009 manual transmission Aston Martin DBS. He brought it out as his personal dream car in Car Trek 5. It is perfectly optioned. It is spectacular. It does have some miles on it, about 35,000, but I think today the car's $150,000.
I'm going to agree with Ed. I saw this while I was appraising it on Car Trek, and honestly, it does not look like 35,000 miles. It looks like a low mileage car. Everything's perfect about it. These cars sound great. They look great. They're just so cool. Aston's not going to make another car like this again. I'm going to put it at $140,000.
I got to see this car when it was in Amelia Island at Car Trek, and it's super sweet. But what I also saw was the look in Freddie's eyes when he stared at it, and I don't think he's ever going to sell it. He is in love with that car, and justifiably so. But, to pry it out of his hands is going to take at least $150,000.
A project that he's currently got underway for the Wrench Everyday channel is a Lexus ISF engine swap into a 97 SC300. I know Freddie loves those cars, and I know Jared does as well. Jared's love of them is, I think, much more operative in this equation because I believe he will finish the car, but we'll just say that it's not there yet. So on that optimism, I'm going to say $7,500.
Wow, so I'm way off. I think it's a great concept. I think that's such a great looking car. The SC300's beautiful. I think the ISF engine, they sound great. It's super cool. I happen to be when I was younger, all I lusted after was any of those cool Lexus sort of, project cars, the L-tuned cars. I put it at $25,000, and maybe I'm completely wrong, but I think it's a cool project.
I think you're pretty close, John. If Jared had anything to do with it, the car is going to be done right. These cars were always good looking. They were let down by their suspension and their engine. They were just kind of soft old man cars. But brightening it up like this, I think that car is going to be really awesome. And I wouldn't drop, 15, maybe even 20 grand on it.
He has another Lexus in the garage. He also brought it on CarTrek 6 as his family sedan. It's Matt Farah's million-mile Lexus, probably the most famous LS400 out there. It has now over 1 million miles, but it doesn't count anymore. It's stuck at 999,999. But regardless, definitely a significant piece of American automotive history in the way it was used, even though it's a Japanese car. So I think it's super cool. It's definitely only worth something for its provenance, but I'd say it's still probably $2,500.
I think the provenance is cool. I think a story sells cars. I think people today want a story. It's the conversation piece. It's like a coffee table book for a collector. I'm gonna put it at 10 grand.
I've never understood the whole million-mile car thing. I don't care whose butt has sweat in it. These cars sell all day long for 4 or 5 grand, and they are great cars. So I don't see the big value. Maybe in 20 years or something, when there's a statue of Matt Farah somewhere. But really, I'm going to put it at 5,000, and I'm going to minus $1 for the million miles.
I'm a big fan of the 55-engined AMG cars. He has an 03 SL55. I think he bought it for like 8 or 9 grand, but he's done a tremendous amount of work to it. It's painted red. He just put a new set of wheels on it. Super duper cool car. And I think when it came out, the most shockingly amazing car that Mercedes has ever introduced to the market. The biggest beneficiary of the relationship with AMG. He's talked a lot about stick swapping this car over the years, and that's never really happened, but I think he could sell the car as it is today, even with its haunted past and its modifications and its unoriginal suspension and things like that, for about 17.5 grand.
I love these cars. They can be a maintenance nightmare, but the fact that he changed, part of the suspension, that's a huge help. Again, even though it's a maintenance nightmare, they're fast, they're awesome, they were so cool. Ed, you were right when they came out. I'm going to put it at 20,000.
I've always liked these cars. I think the improvement on the suspension actually raises value. They were a little soft there for me. I've seen nice versions of this sell in the 20s, so I'm going to put it at $22,000.
One of the best cars you could ever buy, no matter when you're asking that question, is an S65 AMG. He's got a 2015, it's a white car. It's currently getting a 2020 facelift update, which is not what I would do to it, but it's the perfect daily driver that you could ever ask for. I think it's probably a 70 grand car today.
I agree with that. I think it's a $65,000 car, and I think it's crazy that he would be doing a 2020 facelift. These cars are so cool, great spec. And I love the S65 engine.
I love the engines in these cars. I love the way they drive. I think it's a really cool car. You can ignore the maintenance on it. But, putting a bikini on a Gorilla doesn't improve things. I don't think the body package is going to add any value, but the fact that they're sorting it out, that's going to be really nice. So I think when he's done, to the right person, it's a $70,000 car.
The next one is a really, really hard car to value because on paper, it's an ex-rental, formerly stolen Charger. But in reality, it's a Hellcat Red Eye. So what happened there was that Dodge let him use a development car that they would then have to destroy, but they allowed him to keep everything but the shell. So he transplanted a Hellcat into a rental car that he owns, kind of. And so it's kind of a Hellcat. Rather than putting too much more thought into it, I just called it 70 grand and we can move on.
I think this is one day such a cool story. I think, this is going to be maybe worth more than a Hellcat 10, 20 years down the future. I put it at 50,000 today because it's still technically on a base Charger, but I think it's super cool.
Now, I watched all the videos on this one, and the build was super cool, and they did some great things. But, honestly, it's a rental car with a Hellcat motor in it. It's not a real Hellcat. It might be worth something someday to the right person, but sitting on a lot, that car is $45,000 because you can go get a Hellcat for in the 60s. Why wouldn't you do that?
He's doing another Dodge project, but this time with a minivan and a Hellcat engine, building, I suppose, the ultimate family hauler. So he just revealed that, partnering with eBay. It's not done. I'm not even sure that when it's done, it's going to be worth anybody buying. But at the moment, he has a full crate engine Hellcat motor. And that is valuable, I know, because I have priced them and thinking about possibly putting one in an ambulance. and they're about 35 grand. So that's what I valued it at.
So I actually put the car at 0. I think this is a terrible project. I don't know how he's going to get his money out besides the powertrain itself. So I think it's worth whatever the powertrain is. I'd pull it out, just sell the car for whatever you get. I put it at 0. I think it's a bad idea.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, John. I think this is a really cool project. I mean, a sleeper minivan sounds like an absolutely brilliant idea to me. I would totally cannonball that coast to coast. Nobody would expect it or see it coming. But when you put a big engine in something, you got to have big suspension and big brakes to handle it. It's a nightmare of a project if it ever gets done. And I certainly hope it does. But right now it is kind of drivetrain value, probably $25,000. But when it was finished, I'm pretty sure that thing would bring some serious money.
Now, Freddie sends us messages a lot, me and Tyler especially, and he'll say, I'm going to buy something. And one of the things that never made any sense whatsoever and continues to not make sense is a 2004 Noble M12 GTO 3R. It's totally burnt. It's not salvageable. It is cool as decoration, and that's the only value that I gave it to it, but I think it is worth something there. Somebody would paint it in an abstract way or something like that, so I said $2,500.
I think as a piece of art, it's cool, and you make a great point. If it has a VIN number, I mean, maybe one day someone can, I don't know what they would do with it, but I put it at $5,000.
So you've got an early Noble that was built in a cottage in England, and then you lit it on fire. Yeah, I'm gonna have to put that car at scrap. And like really, it's a white elephant gift on Christmas, or leave it in the driveway of an enemy, light it on fire and run away, but get it out of your garage right now.
Now, I recently sold something pretty similar here, but Freddie has a 2005 BMW M3, the iconic E46. It's a converted manual car from SMG, 200,000 miles. He wants to do a full CSL conversion. I bought one for our car flipping contest. I think I paid 11 for it and sold it for about 13. Similar stats, so that's what I called it, 11 grand.
I think this is one of probably the best looking BMWs ever made. I love this car. Unfortunately, apparently it was a bad manual swap. So I think you're going to have to put a lot of money into doing it right. I think it could make a potential great race car or something like that. A lot of miles, which is a little scary. I know those engines are pretty good for 100,000 miles. I don't know about 200,000 miles. I'm going to put it at 5,000 the way it sits today, because I think you're going to have to put a lot of money in to get it to maybe something that's worth 20 or 25.
I'm really close with you here, John, on this one. I think it's a track day car. You know, it's got a fantastic motor, but you've got, you know, an iffy transmission swap, and you know, a lot of mileage. It's kind of almost in a dead area, but I think it would make a great track car. Probably in the range of like $6,000, but I wouldn't want to be the one who's footing the bill to make this thing sound.
In the list he sent us, there's a lot of other things that don't have a tremendous value, but they're at least worth mentioning to go through. His wife's car, a 2012 Hyundai Elantra, 250,000 miles. I know that she won't let him sell it. I called it $7,500 for reliable transportation.
I'm going to put it at $5,000. I mean, 250,000 miles, it's a little scary, but okay.
It's a used Elantra. They're good little cars, but I think it's $4,000.
There you go. He's got a 99 Ford F350, 275,000 miles, a bunch of Banks power upgrades. Reliable truck. I know it served him well. 15 grand for a work truck.
I think any work truck should be over 10,000. I don't know the market. I'm going to say 10,000.
Yeah, a good solid work truck with a few upgrades and things like that, they sell all day long for, I'm going to say 12 grand.
Another interesting car I think still serves as decorative use only is his 75 Brickland SV1. It's got cool doors, but it ain't running, and it's disgusting. It sits in the corner of the garage, making it harder to pull in his door all the time. I said $2,500.
I'd put it at $5 grand. I wouldn't even attempt to restore this. I'd sell it as is on eBay.
Bricklands have a certain fanatical following. They're kind of like Corvair people. So I think he could actually get $5 or $6 grand for it as it sits, because somebody's got a vision for it somewhere.
He also bought a Honda CRX that was sitting in a field. It's an 86, 200,000 miles. Really just a donor for whatever direction you want to build in, but there's a lot of things you could do with it. Again, I said $2,500.
There's so much you can do with these cars. Low mileage cars are bringing crazy numbers when you look around. I think I saw a car for almost 40 grand with no miles. It helps that it's one owner. I'm going to put this at 10,000.
I know you can't really touch CRXs anywhere for less than 4. I don't know the car terribly well, so I'm going to put it at 4,000.
I love a Lotus Esprit. I hate his, though. He's got one that he says is undergoing restoration. It has not fully begun, I don't believe. It's got 84,000 miles. I called it $7,500.
You know, I think these cars are slowly picking up. I think there's a massive Lotus following. We sold a really nice Esprit earlier this year with 500 original miles. My gut is like 15 grand. I wouldn't restore it to whatever he plans to do. I'd try to just clean it up as nice as possible and sell it as is.
You know, Lotuses were poster cars in the 80s and 90s, so there's a passion for those cars out there. So I think this is worth about 10 grand.
He also has a 1991 Honda Beat that I always see sitting in the corner. It's a tiny little car, obviously not something that was really sold in the US market, but an interesting, quirky little Radwood thing. I said $2,500. I assume it's replaceable for that, and probably with one that actually runs.
I actually had to Google this car. I did not know what it was. I looked at some other comps. I'm going to put it's at $7,500. It's a cute little car. It looks like a fun part of 90s history.
I love the little K cars, and this is one of the best little ones you can get, and it's worth 4 or 5 grand all day long just to take to Radwood and show it off.
And the last car on his list is the meme Civic, a 1992 Civic. It was used in some pretty prolific and famous memes. It's now painted red. It doesn't really move under its own power. I don't like it, but I think it works as a decoration. I think he needs to take a lot of these cars and just put them in the Earth Cadillac Ranch style outside of the shop, and that would be the best use for most of them. So again, $2,500 for decorative value.
That is a great idea, Ed. I'm going to say less. I'm going to put it at $800.
I'm going to put it as scrap right next to the Noble. So maybe we can just start the Noble and then the Civic, and he can just start lining them up on his property. I think that's a great idea.
There we go. Well, no matter how you slice it, he has got a lot of cars and they are worth a lot of money. Certainly the healthy car market that we're currently in has helped, but he's built some really cool stuff and he continues to do so. So we've all been entertained by Freddie Tavarish Hernandez and his amazing collection of cars. I came up to almost $1.75 million for that car collection. And I mean, it's really mind-blowing when you look at his career in YouTube amounting to that amazing collection of vehicles.
I think it's incredible what he's done and sort of the following he has. I think his builds are so interesting. They're so funky. He takes, nothing and turns it into something. And I think there's definitely some keepers here. I think there's definitely some stuff that he should just get rid of. It takes up space. But that Mercy Fast and Furious car, the DBS, those are keepers forever.
I have to congratulate Freddie on a stellar collection. And as a car guy, I want to save cars, and that's what he does. And I just enjoy watching him find these cars, see potential in them, bring them back to life, or turn them into something else. He has a fantastic imagination, and it's been enjoyable watching his channel grow and watching all the cars on it.
Thank you guys so much for helping with the appraisal panel. Thank you all for watching, and thank you to ModFind for making all of this possible. Freddie has modified a lot of these cars into truly amazing performance cars and works of art. And if you're looking for your next build, whether you're looking to buy or sell a part, go to ModFind at the link in the description below and support them for supporting us. Thank you all so much. It's an amazing collection of cars. And again, like all the others we've talked about, there's probably a provenance factor here where some of these cars could bring another 20, 30% just because of how much we've all enjoyed watching Freddie build them. So congratulations to Tavarish, and thank you all so much. Have a great day, and we'll be back soon with another VINwiki appraisal panel.